Welcome to After Dark at the Fixed Ops Roundtable, featuring Cara Delane and Ted Ings. This episode is brought to you by BG Products, partners beyond products. And now for your hosts, Ted Ings and Cara Delane.
Welcome to After Dark at the Fixed Ops Roundtable, everyone. And Ted, what a 3 full days we've had at Back to the 80s.
We have. I'm looking at people in the chat already, and I see that Tony Owens is so wound up. Cara, boy, day 3 today. The gentleman who's with us tonight, featured guest, Fred Fordin, was on an amazing panel. Fred, that was not just any panel you were on. That was a panel of superstars. Yourself.
That was a really good group of guys that have a ton of experience and just, a wealth of knowledge. It was an honor to be with them. And
Sarah Van Tyne, right?
Yeah, I said, guys, sorry, Sarah was there. Absolutely.
That's a New York slip, though, right?
Yeah, right there. I mean, it's just right. Everybody's guys, right?
All right. So everybody, Fred Fordin is with us for the half hour tonight. We're grateful to Fred and to all of you for watching the last couple of days. Michael, right? Cannot get enough today. Cara, what's your perspective? I mean, a lot of stuff here.
I'm still wearing my MTV shirt tonight because I'm still in that 80s mode, and we have a full day 4 tomorrow. I can't believe that we're doing 4 full days of Fixed Ops Roundtables. I know we were talking earlier, Ted, and it's just crazy.
That's what I'm supposed to say.
I'm like, I remember when I started with you, and I think it was only one day, and then we thought it was a crazy idea that we would have 2 days, and now we're packed for 4 days.
Right. Yep. So Fred, this young girl from Texas, right? During, 3 years ago when all the craziness was happening, she's working at a dealership. And I've told the story many times how she's calling people in because they're open and they can deliver cars anywhere. And I look on the internet and I look on Facebook and I see her, Robert Miggs, let's go. And Fred, I said, that's the one we need. That's the girl right there. So Fred, do you see some of Cara's posts out on social media?
Oh yeah, I see them if not daily, almost every day, certainly.
Okay. All right. So
I'm always watching.
And Cara, now look what's happened, right? It's not 1 day, it's not 2, it's 4 days. Plus a pop-up. We just came back from Bozard.
I know. That's what I was thinking about right before the show. I'm like, we have 2 days of After Dark every week. Now we've added the pop-up. We have 4-day Fixed Ops Roundtables. It's just, we can't get enough of it. But there's a need for it, so that's why we're doing so much.
And look where it's come since the first, packed in that little room in Vegas at the first one, Ted. I mean, it really has just turned into an industry-wide difference maker. And that's what's huge, all of us coming together and being able to share experiences and ideas and just, it's gotten great. It really has.
It has, Fred. And, we're, really humbled that everybody's taking part in it and a lot going on. So Cara and I just got back from Bozard Ford Lincoln in St. Augustine. And we met an amazing group of people down there. And Cara, I don't know if we can match that 36 hours that we spent in Florida. What a great team they had down there.
It was absolutely amazing. I think it was, honestly, we had an expectation and Bozard just knocked it out of the park. So I know that we're headed to see Tully next in just a few short weeks. And I know he is ramped up and definitely trying to put Mr. Ed Roberts to shame. So we'll see if the Nilo company can compare to Bozard.
That's right. And, Ed had a lot of special folks working there. What a great team. Here you see the leadership team here, right? Including Grace, who was on the show on Monday night, and Brett and Letty, and, of course, our good friend, Jeff King. And, they really showed us a lot of hospitality, Cara, and we're really grateful to them, for all they do for the industry. So,
absolutely.
And you let Ed go on vacation while you were there. That's the tough part, right?
Right.
Now, Fred, you know Tully, right?
I do, of course.
So we're going out to see Tully in Sacramento on June 14th, and we're going to be live there. And Tully is, in fact, I just talked to him before we went on tonight, and Tully is busy getting ready, and he's got Kara, you saw the whiteboard with the chicken scratch. I'll say it right that he sent yesterday, and he's hard at work on what he's going to do.
Yes, I think after watching the first pop-up events, everybody that we have booked in the coming months got really excited about it and got some ideas flowing, and definitely are, hitting the ground running in the next few weeks to make sure that their pop-up event is second to none.
So, Fred, when we got together back in Vegas, BG Products was one of the early sponsors of the Roundtable.
Right.
Sean Kingery, I agree. Sean is from the Kaiser Automotive Group up in Wisconsin, 8 stores, Fred. And Sean, you were a big part. You closed the day today. And Kara, he was on a couple panels. That parts mindset panel, I think, is going to be a keeper. That's going to stay. But anyway, BG had a role there, but now it's just expanded. And when they initially asked, they said, how many pop-ups do you want to do? I told them, I said, well, let's start with 6, right? And I remember they told me, well, what do we do after the 6th? And they said, come back to us and let's look at doing a little bit more. And now, we've got pop-ups coming every part of the country. And Kara, are you going to be out at BG next week?
Yeah, next week. So I'm excited to finally get to see everything that BG does right there at their headquarters and get to interact with everyone that works for BG. And I have to say, Ted, I think when we gave them this pop-up idea, we were confident in the idea, and some other people from the Roundtable were confident, but it seems like BG knew that it was going to be successful, because they were like, hey, let's talk about next year and all of this. And now I'm like, after the first one, they were right.
Yeah, very much so. So a lot of participation in the event that we had today and this week, Texas Tim, and a lot of great panels, Fred. To talk about some of the ones that were on there, aside from yourself, Kara, that one that I just sent over to you with Allie, for example, and Sarah Van Tyne, that leadership development panel. That was a really great one, and that was on Monday.
I know. I was thinking today, as I was doing my live video calling out the next speakers and panels, I was like, I took a moment and I paused in the video. I watched it back because I was thinking, man, all of this in one afternoon. I couldn't even remember all of the panelists, all of the speakers that were happening today. And they were all just amazing people in our industry.
And I thought for sure you would give a shout out to Northwood University today, because you were on that panel with them as well.
I know, there were just too many panels. I was too excited. I was like, how do we cram all of this into one day? But that Northwood panel was definitely one of my favorites. And I was glad that they were in the chat today as well.
I missed that one. I got to go back and watch that. Did Mike Stoll do that with you?
Yes, Mike was there. LG was there. And a student by the name of Cole Briggs, who is the chairperson of the 60th annual International Auto Show that's going to be in October. And Kara and I are going to be doing the pop-up October. I don't know if it's the 4th, 5th, or 6th, Kara, but we're going to be there apparently. So,
yep. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I think it's on Saturday, but I could be wrong. That's far enough away. We'll figure it out in the coming months.
Yeah, Mike's done a great job with Northwoods in really getting a lot of exposure for their graduates and helping them move along. It's been a great relationship.
I know. He said I have to call him professor now. So
yeah.
All right. So
I've been calling him something for a long time.
So Fred, before we have a clip from that panel that you were on earlier today. In fact, let me jump into it. Let me show that, and then I want to ask you about ASR Pro, which is how you're known in the industry. But the panel you were on, I'll set the stage. You had Brian Kramer on there. You have Steve Greenfield, Ed Roberts, Sarah Van Tyne. It's a wow panel. And the topic of dealership culture comes up. And Kara, I want to show this short clip. And this is Fred at work today. And this was around noon Eastern time today.
And, I always look forward to seeing the resiliency and creativity at the dealer level.
Yeah. Fred Fordin, there's a lot to be said for that resiliency and creativity. I don't think any industry bounced back as well as we did in the last 2-3 years. How are dealers going to empower their leaders to address the challenges that we have ahead of us?
That's great. And, Steve just touched on something that I think the advantage of my last 15 years in the industry has been dealing with lots of dealers. And, if there's one common thread that I've always found, it's that we could take the top 2,000, 3,000 dealers and almost to the store, there's a winning culture. There's a culture of success. There's a culture of education. There's a culture of wanting to further not just the customer and the bottom line, but the individuals who work in the dealership. But when you get past those top few thousand dealers, the most common thing I've seen in all the stores I've dealt with is a winning culture missing. And so when we saw all those stores, disappear back in 08 and 09,
Sure.
the ones that disappeared were the ones that didn't have that winning culture. So I think what they do to empower is to really they got to modernize. They've got to accept. Brian talked about AI. You got to get into winning tools. You got to be willing to learn how to use them. You got to learn how to maximize them. And winning culture pushes that down into down to the last person on the totem pole.
And Fred, boy, do your words ring true when we went down to see Bozard. Wow.
Oh yeah, yeah. Ed has got that place tuned up. I mean, it's that is an all-star operation.
Yeah, I love that. And Jeremy, thank you so much. And Sean Butler, very kind for your comments as well. And Sean, you're on a lot of panels as well. So like all that. So Fred, talk to us about ASR Pro. You're known throughout the industry. You developed that. What is that? Help our education tonight. And I know that's evolved and morphed into some other things as well.
Sure. So, if you look back at the history of fixed operations, there was a company, a consulting company in Alabama called Atcon, ATCON. Yeah. And they basically wrote the manual on the 7 principles, of fixed operations greatness. I can't remember the exact title of the book, but I read it cover to cover. I just don't remember the title. It's a long time. But within their writing was a manual system for inspecting vehicles and taking those results to customers. The problem was it was a handwritten system that really required, you had to pay at least one person full time just to try and keep up with the paper flow. It was written well before we had PCs. Mm-hmm. So I was in Dealer Academy with Sonic, and we learned about this, and I looked at it, and I had already written some software for automotive that it was kind of flipping my Dealer Academy class on its ear. And I learned about this, and I went back to my store after, I think it was weekend 2. I went back to my store and I looked at what we do, and I was running a BMW store in Florida. And this is back in the early 2000s. And back then, BMW had full maintenance on all of their vehicles when you bought a new car, which basically meant the only things you had to pay for were tires and wiper blades. Everything else got included in maintenance. So my customer pay was in the toilet because BMW people were leasing for 3 years. The full maintenance was covered that entire time. There was no customer pay money coming in. So I took this Atcon system and I went and I built a piece of software in 4 days. The first version of ASR Pro it took 4 days to write. And I installed it in my store, and all of a sudden my customer pay went through the roof in a month. And I thought it was only working because I was sitting on top of it. So I gave it to 2 other GMs from my Dealer Academy class. And they called me a month later and said, "Dude, do you understand what you have done here?" So I said, "Well, now that you said that, you can't have it anymore." I pulled it back, right? And then from there, of course, it began to be a business. I began to sell it door to door. I mean, when I started, I was in Atlanta with little CDs.
Okay.
I had made up, right? And I walked Satellite Boulevard in Duluth, and I was dropping off CDs. And I got I must have walked about a mile and stopped in a bunch of dealerships. And I got a phone call from David Patterson, who was the fixed ops director of Gwinnett Place Honda. And David called me, and in his thick Scottish accent, he said, "Can you come back here?" I said, "Sure, I'll come back." And I went back, and we sat down and talked, and he agreed to put the product in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was, at this point, this is the number 2 Honda store in the country, and their fixed operations is huge, and they're the biggest store in all of Hendrick. And so, David had an amazing month with the product.
And you're a one-man show at the time.
Oh, I'm a one-man show at this point. And from David having a great month, Jerry Brown, the GM, got up in front of a meeting of a bunch of Hendrick stores and just said, "If you don't do this, you're an idiot."
Mm-hmm.
He didn't use those words, but basically that's what he said. His words were a little more New York.
More colorful, yeah.
And so I got a bunch of Hendrick stores, and that's how it started. And, so over time, of course, we grew to hundreds of stores. And in that process, my business partner had an agreement with CDK. And he was going to build them a fixed ops product, which was a scheduler, a lane tool, and a shop management system. And basically what we did was we took AutoLoop, who was my partner at the time, we took their scheduler and my lane tool and my shop management system and put them all together and sold that to CDK. And of course, we put some constraints on it. There were things they could do and things they couldn't do because they were going to compete with me now, right? So ASR Pro at that point also became CDK Service. And at one point it had a different name, Service Pro, had a couple of different names.
Wow.
But eventually it became CDK Service. We ran our company for another 3 years and then sold the company to DealerTrack.
Right.
DealerTrack gets bought just months later by Cox.
Cox Automotive.
And so X-Time and ASR Pro become one package. And so X-Time Inspect is also ASR Pro. So, between them right now, there's probably 7,500 stores utilizing the product that I built originally. Wow. And, it's cool. I between my time at DealerTrack and then as a consultant and then my time with CDK, I've gotten into a lot of stores and just seen a lot, learned a lot, and was able to help a lot, which has been great.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. Kara, that's amazing. And ASR Pro was the original. I know that was how it was originally branded. Okay?
Right. That was the original brand name.
And ASR stands for additional
service requests.
Service requests. Okay.
Right.
Yep. And so for those in the audience who don't understand what that means, Fred, just elaborate that.
Sure. So the difference when you take your car into service, and the advisor calls you and says you need X, Y, and Z. If you took it in for a brake squeal and he calls you and says you need pads and rotors, that is not an additional service request because it relates to why you went there in the first place. Yeah. If you go in for a brake squeal and they also call and say, "Hey, your rear struts are leaking," the rear struts found during an inspection that had nothing to do with the reason the customer came in, that is an additional service request. And so, if you look at it, prior to MPI Edge and ASR Pro, there was no measurement of salesmanship in fixed operations. None. It didn't exist because basically it was, what did I do last year, same month, and last month, and compare that to this month.
Yeah.
If my numbers are better, I must be doing better.
Yeah.
But of course, we all know there's lots and lots of reasons why numbers change. Mm-hmm. It's not just that you're doing better. So really, it was the first time, when MPI Edge came out, it really was just a salesmanship tool. It was all about present this to the customer. What ASR Pro did was it not only made the presentation to the customer, but it became a shop management tool where we were measuring things like, what is the quality of the recommendations coming from our technicians? Because if the guys are just, if all you're seeing is brake flushes and that kind of stuff, they're not really inspecting the vehicle. One of the great things that happened, I used to go into dealerships with every store, the first few hundred. I would go in and we would put the system in, and we wouldn't show any results to any of the employees the first month. And then I would come back and pull all the reports. And it was great. You'd get all the advisors and technicians in one room, and you'd say to them, okay, Technician Joe, what do you think the average mileage was on the cars you had worked on this month? Everything was under warranty. It couldn't have been more than 34,000. Okay. Steve, what about you? I don't know, maybe 42, 43. And John, mine was probably close to 50. Well, here, guys, yours was 87. Mm-hmm. Yours was 63, and yours was 76. Now, when I tell you that, what does that tell you? What do you tell yourself at that point? Mm-hmm. And of course, what we were doing was working them to get them to the point where the technicians would say, I'm leaving money on the table. Mm-hmm. You want to raise, guys. Mr. Hendrick's not giving it to you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can give it to yourself. Mm-hmm. And so it was a very, very interactive time for me with a lot of dealerships. And it was great. It was, I had meetings like that. Some of them got heated. And the other thing we would do is I'd point at an advisor. Steve, what's his favorite recommendation? Power steering flush. He knew it. This guy's recommending junk, and he knew it, right? Yeah. So it just, when you begin to expose that stuff, CSI gets better because the customers are saying yes more often. When you call them with an air filter and and a power steering flush and a coolant flush, the customers are already trained to say no. Yeah. But when you call them and you're
real stuff,
you're giving them real concerns for their safety and the well-being of their vehicle, you get yes a lot more often. Your closing percentage goes up, and your CSI goes up with it. Mm-hmm. And so it was really, a time for me. It was a 6 or 7 year period where it felt great to go into a dealership and make a difference and come back out.
Yeah, you really did. You really did.
Yeah, we surely did. We surely did.
So Kara, we talk about, I know you've heard Auto Loop, because I know there's been a lot of people on the show who've talked about Auto Loop, right? Who were involved at some point with that as well. But Fred, in those early days, you're talking about a time when the multi-point inspection was just, being introduced and was met, as I'm sure ASR Pro was, with a lot of resistance, right? By the techs. Yeah. I mean, we would go into stores, Kara, and they didn't want to do the technicians were like, I got to do what? I got to look at the whole car. I got to do a report. I got to fill that out. Remember those days, Fred?
Yeah. And God forbid, when we put the electronic process in place, God forbid you walked into a union store, the guys wanted to get paid to do an inspection, right? They were more worried about the 2/10 of an hour or 3/10 of an hour getting paid versus, hey, I can give myself a huge raise here just by doing these inspections. It's, we had to overcome a lot of objections in those days. And in the MPI forms, the smudged, grease smudged, scribbled, they weren't legible. I got into one of the big groups. I mean, it's a great story. I won't name the group, but I got into one of the big groups because I went to the regional fixed ops director. He had 26, 27 stores. And basically, he made a bet with me. He said, no. Every one of my cars is getting inspected. I said, I'll guarantee you it's not. He said, you're on. I said, okay, here's the deal. I go through 200 ROs, and if I find any that are missing, you put this in all 26 stores. And if I'm wrong, I'll put it in these 10 stores for free. You're on.
Wow.
So his vice president happened to walk in. We told him what was going on. He said, all right. He says, what do you need? I said, give me 200 consecutive ROs any day last week. I don't care. Mm-hmm. And he took us to lunch. And we came back from lunch, and we didn't get through 12 ROs. And it was over. And that's from a high-performing group that does really well. But even when they had processes in place that most dealers didn't, there was no way to check that the process was being fulfilled, that the mandate was being fulfilled.
So, Fred, I got to ask you in the little time we have left tonight. So what are your thoughts now about this new era of fixed operations? Because now the stuff that Kara and that I know that you're seeing as well, we have companies, a lot of companies that are doing video multi-pointings.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're doing stuff on video from the technicians. We're seeing all kinds of stuff that we never even thought about, you know, years ago, maybe not even months ago.
Well, the customers love the video. They love getting a video on their text to show them when you can show the parts that need to be replaced. You know, it's a great tool. My opinion is that the computerized process should not be eliminated in favor of the video, but that they should be used together. There's an absolute synergy between both. There's a reason to back up what you do in the computer beyond just a video. You know, documentation for historic reasons, things like that just matter. But the customers are loving the video. You know, I worked with one company when I was at CDK. You know, we brought True Video in as a partner, and you know, Joe is a dealer. He's got 6 dealerships, and you know, he worked hard to create that product for his stores, and he did great. You know, he's built a wonderful product, and you know, and now I've got a couple of my kids are working for another vehicle inspection company. We all left CDK at the same time, and you know, and I've looked at that product carefully with them, and it does a tremendous job, and it includes video as well. So there's just, you know, there's a lot of good choices out there. The unfortunate part for me has been I see that the management, the usage of the system as a management tool beyond selling has faded away. I kind of feel like I could walk into any dealership that's using a system like that, and I could get them better because they've skipped that part. You know, it's gotten down to the raw. How many more dollars can I get? Well, how many more dollars could you get if your whole shop was operating at a higher level? And that information is in that system for you to do that. But you know, so there's lots of opportunity out there, which is the good news, right? You know, there's lots of room for the dealers to improve.
So, Kara, there's some nights that you and I get guests that, you know, we have a hard time getting a few words out of them. So that's not tonight, Kara.
Yeah, I know. I can talk. I'm sorry.
No, it was great because we got, you know, the full evolution of everything you've done. So it's very inspiring.
Great stuff, Fred. Hey, Fred, what's next? What's next for you? I know you got a lot of things on the go. Maybe you can't talk about everything, but I know you're still a major force in the industry.
Yeah. I thought about retiring, but it's just too soon for me, Ted. I did it once. It doesn't work well. I'm too wound up. I love our business too much, and whether I'm in it from the retail side or from the software side, I want to be interacting with dealers on a daily basis. That's what I do. That's what I do best, and it's what makes me the happiest. So, you know, I got a couple of things working. I'm not sure what will work out and what won't, but you know, it's all good.
All right. Well, we want you to come back on the September show. Tomorrow, Kara is going to announce what the theme is going to be. It's going to be our 21st Fix Ops Roundtable, Kara. I'm
so excited about the theme already. I have kept a tight lip about it, but everyone is going to be really excited, I think.
21, huh?
It's going to be better than the MTV.
It is. That's all I'll say.
Do you think we're going to, now it's only May, the event is in September, so we got June, July, August. Are we going to run out of material, Kara, to promote this thing, or?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Not a chance with this one. And I think some of these pop-ups are going to help me out even more.
I'm hearing that. Yeah, I heard Tully's on board. So everybody, tomorrow, Fixed Ops Roundtable Back to the 80s opens up at 9:00 a.m. You want to be there for that. And again, that's going to go until about 4:15 or so. Ed Roberts will be on, Sarah. Of course, you're going to have Tully Williams and everybody on the big cast, and a big day tomorrow, Kara. And then you're going to announce the theme for the next show. When does that happen, Kara? Towards
That's going to happen at the very end of the day tomorrow.
Right.
So hopefully everybody stays tuned because you're not going to want to miss the closing scene of Back to the 80s.
And plus, everybody, if you haven't voted yet for the best practice winners, you get a chance to do that tomorrow. I know Fred Fordin is eligible. Sean Kingery, you've already got your own best practice award. Sean, are wigs next? I don't know. I got a feeling there's going to be some kind of props, though. So, so we'll have to
I'll
twist
get with
Sean's
you
arm.
later, Sean.
We'll have to twist his arm on that. But hey, Fred, very grateful to you for all that you do.
Thank you. Appreciate being here, Ted. Thanks for the invite.
All right. So tomorrow we're back at 9 a.m., everybody. And then we will see you on Monday night with the best practice winners, right, Kara?
We will. That's going to be an exciting show on Monday night, like Ted said, at our usual time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll announce those best practice award winners. And then, hopefully everybody joins us back in the 80s for our final day at the Fixed Ops Roundtable starting at 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow.
Super. Well, Fred, thank you. And everybody will see you, and Jeremy will see you tomorrow as well. So on behalf of Kara and Fred Fordin, one more big day tomorrow.
Yep.
All
We'll
right.
see you there.
See you there.